know what we did to control the chaos, let's move forward and see what else was layered on top to add the other rhythmic elements. So on our kind of controlled chaos layer, I've added just a few things. So I've got the fruity compressor here just to create the sidechain. You know, I use the fruity peak controller on the kick, and then that fruity peak controller is routed in an invert manner to our fruity compressor threshold. So then on top of that, I don't really have much more. I've got just an EQ to take out some of the low end, and then a fruity love filter, which I used to love to use for low passing and high passing, but now I just use the fruity filter. So first of all, I created chords that followed the same structure that I was using, but then create that harmonic bass in order for those other kind of more random notes to kind of flutter on top. And then I used this sample that I had recorded using my Zoom. Whoop, this bad boy right here. This sample here. Just with a little reverb on it, probably a little EQ. See, sent to the reverb bus here with a little bit of EQ to bring out some mid-range, and then definitely that high frequency to kind of, make it tickle the ears. Now, keep in mind, these chords aren't from the original, chords over here. So these are chords that I just kind of created around the harmonic structure that came about through the sampling of that randomness. And this is where we kind of got into the actual meat of the beat. For that first beat, I take out our randomness, but then I bring it back in. I just wanted to put a lot of emphasis onto the 808 that's right here. And with the 808, as you can see, I really just created it around the chord progression. I took the chords that I had and basically took out the top notes on each one of these chords, except for this last one, but that's because it was an inverted chord, meaning that this is the bass note of the chord, but the two top notes have been shifted below to create a different kind of texture. And then I added little flutter 808s up here just to add some character and some movement. And of course, that's just using the built-in FL Studio 808 through Flex. I love Flex. I have New Era 808s through Contact as well, but Flex is one that I go back to because I really like how kind of raw it feels. I wanted this to be a little wonky. I wanted it to not just be a regular 808 pattern. So as you can see, I've taken these high notes off the grid a little bit. So I've got this one's rushed, that one's a little behind, and then these two are both behind the beat. But that's to give that groove. So here it is in context, with these hats that, keep in mind, are also behind the beat. So it plays with that, but to bring that humanness and that kind of groove into it, you got to take them off the grid. You got to rush some, but you got to be very intentful with how you do that. This one is meant to be like a behind the beat for a reason. And then this is ahead of the beat just because that's what felt right. I'm not gonna lie. Real quick, I want to show you just the 808 and the drums. So I'm gonna take out these instruments. This is just the 808 and the drums. This is how they play together. You know, your drums and your 808 are never really separate. They both create the rhythm and the bass, B-A-S-E, for what your song is built on. So if they're not grooving, nothing else is going to help it to groove. So you can hear that they're working together to create this kind of like back and forth kind of bobby groove, and then everything else is kind of just adding to that. And this randomness is really what inspired a lot of the kind of wonkiness of the 808, how that's playing together. You know? So for the hi-hats, I just used a nice little hi-hat loop that I had sitting around. It's from a free Cymatics kit, but anyway, moving on. So for the snare in this project, I used one from a friend of mine called Tired Lights. He's got some really nice, tasty snares in a pack that he sent to a bunch of us a while back. I just loved how it sounded, and I believe on that I added Timeless, which is a delay plugin that is really nice by FabFilter. It basically creates delay that isn't just consistent, it kind of moves. It's got LFOs going on, like it's got this instability parameter here that, you know, you can see these different these different delay parts kind of moving around, and that gives it a lot of character. So each snare is a little bit different. It's slight differences, but it still has an effect on, you know, our sub. So we also have just some kicks here. This specific kick is a kick that I designed using some Foley sounds. I can't remember what the original sound was for this kick, but this is the kick that ended up being sound designed. It's a nice clicky kick, but it also has like some beef in the bottom. I love using it for things like this. So one other thing I have here is just a little noise that kind of adds a little rhythm here and there. So in context, it's kind of subtle, but it gives like a tss right before that downbeat. So here, these chords are just following the same chords that I created for this intro. So then, again, when the beat comes in, we've got this guy here kind of following those chords. And that's just a Prophet preset with a little bit of EQ on it to bring out that high end. A little bit more than I'd usually do, but, you know, not everything has to be technically sound. You got to follow where the creativity brings you. Then here I get a few other layers. Here we have another Prophet, a Prophet patch. And this is, again, just following the chords that I had created around that controlled chaos loop. Then we also have a Mellotron. I love the Mellotron. Let's see what setting it's on. The Strawberry Flutes. The default setting for the Mellotron V, but it is a beautiful sounding patch. I love using it. I put it in a lot of different songs. And then that, I believe, is being sent fairly heavily to the reverb, and it also has that sidechain compressor on it. So here's that section together. And so this is just another weird part of this beat. With this part, I took that loop and turned it down, and pitched it down an octave, and then looped it here and just took the channel volume down. Just looped a very small part of it right here. And that creates this which ends up fading out and making room for this other piece of sound design, which I believe I created by taking that controlled chaos loop and putting it through Portal and using some granular effects on there. I really love Portal because it gives this really weird granulated feel, and it can be organic and synthetic all at the same time. I'm a big fan of Portal, another rent-to-own plugin through Splice. And those parts kind of create this ending section, which then moves back into the beat. Then comes right back. We let that 808 not hit right at first, but come in at that second snare. I love holding off a beat drop just for a little bit, making them wait for it, And that's basically all the different parts of the beat for I Don't Like Crowds Anymore. I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown and it gave you a little bit of understanding of how I use randomness in my music, and maybe you can implement some of the things that I've used in here into your own music. I do Twitch streams of my entire production process every Monday and Wednesday from 7 to 9 Eastern Time. I love answering questions, and I love hearing what you create with, this knowledge. So come through, chat with me, and let's make some music. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you another time.